Welcome to Agency for Change, a podcast from KidGlov that brings you the stories of changemakers who are actively working to improve our communities. In every episode, we'll meet with people who are making a lasting impact in the places we call home.
There's a well-known quote from President John F. Kennedy that goes, "Children are the world's most valuable resource and its best hope for the future." And today we're talking with someone from an organization that practices that exact sentiment by always putting children first in everything they do. Hi, everyone. I am Lynn Weinman, President and Chief Strategist of KidGlov. This is the Agency for Change podcast, and we're joined by guest Lana Temple-Plotz, CEO of the Nebraska Children's Home Society, an organization that's on a mission to provide safe and loving care to children of all ages by offering education for families, facilitating adoption, supporting foster parents and kids, and helping families at every step of the way. Lana, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Lynn. Great to be here.
Great to see you again. You and I have known each other for a long time, but haven't seen each other for a while. So always great to talk with you. And before we get too far along, could you tell our listeners who may not be familiar with your organization what the Nebraska Children's Home Society does and who it serves?
Yes, absolutely. So Nebraska Children's Home Society, we are a statewide organization. We're 129 years old.
Ooh, wow.
I know, isn't that crazy? We serve the entire state, and we have three core areas: adoption, foster care, family support, and one more, early childhood education. So we do lots of different things within those four areas.
Fantastic. So on your website and several of your materials talk about how Nebraska Children's Home Society puts children first. What does that look like?
So one of the things that I love about this organization is we're incredibly focused on what's best for kids. And so our first question is always, what does the child need, or how can we best serve the child? What can we do to help support this child? And we kind of go out from there. And so that's been a thing that I've really loved about this organization, is that we've really focused on the needs of the child and ensuring that we put them first in the equation to make sure that they have the support and loving care that they need to be successful.
You know, I've often heard it said about nonprofits that you can't go wrong if you put your mission first. And I actually think that works for for-profits as well. But when your mission is children, that has got to feel really good.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you mentioned adoption services, and I know you provide post-adoption services. And I think in some cases, somebody on the outside might think, hey, once the child is adopted, the work is done. But I'm curious, how do you continue to help adoptive parents after that process is complete?
We, of course, provide adoption services within our own organization. And so we support families who have adopted through us for the entire life, their entire lifespan.
Oh, my goodness.
And all members of the adoption circle, right? So adoptive parents, adoptees, birth parents, we support all those individuals for as long as they need us. But in addition to that, we also provide post-adoption services across the state for folks who have adopted outside of our organization, right? So we have a contract with the department right now, and it's called Families Forever. And we're focused on families who have adopted either through foster care or infant or international adoption and are living in Nebraska. Magically, around the age of 12 or 13, children start to have some difficulties. They're looking at their own identity, right?
Yes.
Trying to figure out who they are in this great big world. And so we often get families who come to us who may have been doing just fine. And then around the age of 12 or 13 is when kids, typically all kids, start to question who they are and where they belong. And for adoptees, this can just bring up a lot of things, a lot of questions and a lot of different behaviors and things. So we just help families with whatever they need: support groups, education. We have one-on-one mentoring and support for families to help them, connect them to resources in their communities. And so that's just what we do through our post-adoption services.
You know, Lana, I have 3 kids of my own. I never felt brave enough to adopt, but I know that the families who do just reap great rewards. But I had so many questions when my kids hit that age, right? I think
Yeah.
I read every parenting book available. I was lucky my mother has a child development degree, so I'd always, every morning was just calling her and saying, what do I do now? What do I do now? So I imagine with adoptive parents, that has got to be even a greater need. So that's a great service to have. I'm curious too, what other programs or services do you have that might surprise our listeners?
That's a great question. I think organizationally, we're doing a lot in the family support space. So we have a program right now that we're just bringing up, a service that we're just bringing up called Mobility Mentoring. And it's a coaching and mentoring program for families. And we are working with an organization on the West Coast called Empath, and we are replicating their model across the state with our families that we work with. And it really looks at self-sufficiency and all different kinds of self-sufficiency. So oftentimes if families are having struggles with concrete supports and with financial concerns and getting the things that they need to raise their kids, that's one area where lots of folks are able to assist families. And we take it beyond that, beyond just budgeting, and we look at all the goals a family might have. So do they want to build connections with their own family? Do they need more resources and supports? Raising kids, as you mentioned, is hard, and it's hard to do by yourself.
Yeah.
And even when you have support from family, it's nice to have a lot of different opportunities and resources. So do they want to build their resources and their supports with their family? Do they want to get a higher education degree? Are they having housing concerns? There's just a lot of different things we look at, the whole family. And it's the family's decision about what they want to work on. We just help them reach their goals through that program.
That is so cool. Mentoring has been a really popular, I think, and positive process in business, and I think in college and as people graduate from college. But I love the idea of mentoring a family because really you don't go to college to learn how to be a family, right? I mean, there's resources out there, but sometimes it's hard to put them all together. I think that is just such a cool program. And I honestly have never heard of anything like it. So congrats.
Yeah, we're excited about it. And like I said, our teams are getting trained in it, and we're starting to incorporate it into our other programming. And that's the great thing about this model, is that you can infuse it into the things you're already doing, which is fantastic. So I'm really excited about that. Another component folks might not be aware of with us is our kinship navigation services. So we talked a lot about adoption, and we also provide foster care. And in those two situations, families are really prepared to take children, and there's lots of training and education. In kinship situations, families are not typically prepared ahead of time to take a child, right? So if my sister, for example, was having a problem or a struggle and she needed to be hospitalized for some reason, and her kids were young, they might call me and say, can you come get them today?
Oh, wow.
And if you don't come get them today, we're going to have to place them in care, right? And so every family member wants to help their relatives. And so they say yes, and they bring these kids on, and they don't have any of the supports that, regular foster parents would have. They don't have training, education, and support. And so that's one of what we're doing through our kinship navigation program. And so through some of the other services we offer around supporting kin families, which is so important because the research shows that kids do better if they have to leave their own home. They do much better with people who they know and relatives than they would in a home of someone that they've never met. So supporting those folks is great.
That sounds like a great service. And that's right. I don't think I know a single person who is saying, I've got a lot of extra time and money, and I just like some kids to show up, right? As much as you love the kids, it's a big responsibility, a financial, emotional, time commitment, so many things there. So that sounds like a great service as well. So, Lana, I understand that Nebraska Children's Home Society is a member of the Children's Home Society of America. So I'm curious, can you walk me through that relationship and how it benefits the children you serve?
Yeah, absolutely. So Children's Home Society of America, or CHSA, is made up of 24 high-performing, nationally recognized, accredited organizations across the country. And so it's incredibly cool because I sit on the board of CHSA, and there's just so many opportunities for us to partner. I learn a ton from other organizations in different states about how they're providing services and what they're doing. In addition to that, these are all nonprofits. They're all across the country. Collectively, we impacted 500,000 children last
Oh
year.
my
So
goodness.
it just really raises your impact. And some of the things that we have done organizationally in connection with Children's Home Society of America are, our current relationship with Harvard Center on the Developing Child.
Yeah.
That came to us through our relationship with Children's Home Society of America. The service I just mentioned, mobility mentoring, we learned about that through Children's Home Society of America. We do a national conference every year called Wicked Problems, Solving the Wicked Problems of Child Welfare. And we participate in that through Children's Home Society of America. So it's just a great opportunity for us to strengthen our voice and strengthen our services through connecting with those other folks. And just an opportunity for me, a CEO, also to learn from other CEOs and connect with others who are doing great work. So it's
Yeah.
been really helpful to our organization.
Sometimes, Lana, people don't think about how CEOs need mentoring, right? Or a
Yeah,
support network, right? Or
absolutely.
just someone to go to and say, wow, I am having this situation. You've probably also had this situation. How did you deal with it? So that's got to be incredible. And congratulations to you for being on the national board. I think that's got to serve Nebraska really well,
Yeah,
knowing that
absolutely.
you're representing us on that level. So
Yeah.
congratulations. Congratulations.
It's so funny because I presented at a class before at UNO on leadership. And one of the things I told the class was that the tools and skills that got me to be a CEO are not the skills I use now.
Yes.
And so when you move to that next level and you're in a leadership position within an organization, the kinds of things you need to learn how to do are different than the things that got you there.
Yeah.
And so that's been really fascinating for me. And it's been super helpful to have CHSA partners, just CEOs who've been CEOs for a long time, who I can have conversations with and learn from their work and all the things that they do. So it's been great.
That's neat. I think there's actually a whole book about that, and I'm probably going to slaughter it, but I think the title is something like What Got You Here Won't Get You There. And it's
Yeah.
it's not like a nice, fluffy book. It is a very pointed, direct, like, you need to think about these things kind of a book, but it's kind of the reality of being successful at that next level. I'm
Yeah.
glad you've got that support system and mentoring for yourself in place. I have to ask you one marketing question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Being in marketing, rebranding always really interests me. And I actually followed your rebrand. I think it was in 2018 to mark the 125th anniversary. So you're almost to 130 now. But I know you helped lead the society through that complete brand refresh. Could you talk to me about the need for the brand refresh, and maybe how did you accomplish it, and what were the benefits you got out of it?
So when we went through that process, the brand that we had before was too colored. It was, I think we started it in, I wanted to say the 70s, and my marketing PR director is going to probably correct me on that. But we had that brand for a long time, and it was a picture of a baby.
Yeah.
And we do so much more than just work with babies. And so our new brand is really, it's a house, and it has many different people inside that house. And the focus of that brand is really on the center, and the center of our brand is a child, represents a child, and how there's individuals who support that child both in and outside of the house. And that really does speak more to what we do as an organization. It's multi-layered and multicolored, which just allows, as you know, in your profession, so many more opportunities for colorful ways to share what we do as an organization. So we've been really pleased with our new brand, and we've just had so many great opportunities to utilize it in different ways. It's just created a whole new level of vibrant marketing tools for us.
Yeah, vibrant. Vibrant is one of the things I take away from it. And I think to me, when I first saw it, when it came out in 2018, I thought, yeah, this is a variety of people coming together to support the child. So well done, and congratulations on that.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So Lana, you've been at the helm of the organization now since 2017. Since that time, I'm curious, how have you seen it change, and what do you think is next for Nebraska Children's Home Society?
We have just after I started as CEO, we implemented a new strategic plan. So we did that in 2019. Was a huge change for us. We did strategic planning in a way we've never done it before.
Yeah.
So that was really exciting. We took a whole year to figure out what we wanted to do. And what was great about that is that we really looked forward to the future aspirationally. Where do we want to go? It's a 10-year plan, which is a lot longer than most strategic plans.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting because when we were doing that and our consultant was challenging us to think big, it was really hard for us to do that.
Yeah.
Because in the nonprofit space, you're so used to scarcity.
Yes.
And just trying to get to the next thing. And so thinking big about where we want our organization to go in 10 years is really helpful for us to kind of set that course. And so that we can really think about what do we want to have happen.
Yeah.
So a great example of that is our aspiration around universal home visitation or home visitation for every family in Nebraska. We would not have set that vision, a vision that we couldn't obtain by ourselves within a previous strategic plan. And that particular aspiration asks us to look not just at what we can do, but how we can partner with others to make sure every family has the opportunity to have early intervention and support in the way of home visitation. So again, much huger than us. And so that, I think for us, that plan really helped us think bigger, not just about strategy and where we were going, but, what are we doing as an organization? Of course, the pandemic required all of us to be virtual and remote. We've reimagined how we do our work, just like every other organization.
Yeah.
We do a lot of virtual meetings and we have a lot more flexibility with folks as far as when they're in the office and when they're not, and where they can work and where they can't. And that's been really helpful. Our employees are our most important asset and resource. And it's so important to make sure that they have an environment that's comfortable and that they feel welcome and that they feel like they can do their job and take care of their families too. And so we've worked really hard in the last few years to build our organization as it relates to our employee experience. Virtual, like I mentioned, flexibility in work environments. We this year moved everyone up to the 75th percentile in salary to make sure that everybody could be able to pay their bills and do their work. And also have been working for the last year and a half, actually a little over a year, with an equity and justice firm called K&R Strategies. And we're really focused on moving our organization to an anti-racist, anti-oppression organization, which is a huge thing for us.
Absolutely.
Especially, of course, this is a podcast and people can't see me, but I'm a white woman. And, I'm running this organization and I want to make sure that we have an organization that's equitable for all, that every employee feels welcome and feels that they can be their true self here. And so I've just learned a ton in the last year about my own individual way that I view the world and how it's so mired in, institutional racism that is around us all the time. So that's been really exciting for us as an organization and for me personally, how to make sure that we are truly working in a way that welcomes every individual, not just our families, but our employees too, right? So that they can have a great experience here. I always tell everyone the first day that I want this to be the best place that they've ever worked. And that's a really tall order. And I feel like now we're really doing some things through our equity and justice work, through our flexible schedules, through our salaries to really make that happen. So, like I said, our employees, our teams are our most important people and they do the hard stuff. So it's important that we create an experience that's great for them.
Wow, Lana, what great things you are doing. I love everything you said. I mean, sometimes I think people who are not in nonprofits think, I'm going to go to the nonprofit side because it'll be a kinder, gentler, easier path. And it's not. It's a lot of work. And sometimes, I know in your particular human service area, sometimes you see things that are really difficult, right?
Yeah.
So you work hard. Usually you get paid less, but you're working to rectify a lot of that. And I love your whole thought on equity and justice, because I think a lot of leaders are going through that. There was a time when I felt as a leader, I'm okay because I'm not doing anything bad. I'm not doing anything bad, but as you explore and learn and really take time to listen and educate yourself, you realize I've looked at the world through this one lived experience and I don't understand.
Mhm.
And so pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone and learning that and rectifying it, I think is a really important journey. So good
Yeah.
for you. So, I do want to talk a little bit about you because you're obviously a very dynamic leader, which doesn't surprise me because you and I went to college together and you were always a very dynamic and outspoken and passionate college student. We didn't see each other for a long time. You joined Nebraska Children's Home Society, I think in 2013, right?
Hmm.
And I know you had a lot of experience with different organizations that serve kids and families prior to that, but what can you tell us about your career path and how it led you to where you are today?
Well, my degrees are both in human development and the family. So I have my undergraduate is in, and I think they call it family science now. That tells you how old I
Yeah.
am. And it used to be called human development and the family. I have my bachelor's in that. And I was actually invited to get my master's, which was fantastic because they helped pay for it. So that was totally awesome.
Nice.
Otherwise, I probably wouldn't. And I always in awe of women in particular who are raising children and trying to go back and get their degrees because it's
Oh,
so
yeah.
hard to
And
do.
working, many
Yes.
working, raising kids, getting
Yes.
their
Yeah.
degrees. I don't know how they do
I
it.
don't know
Yeah.
how they do it either. Yeah. So my two degrees are in human development, and then I started my career at Boys Town. I actually worked there for 10 years in their foster care program, direct service and treatment foster care, and then I worked and trained other organizations in foster care. So I did a lot of work, both internally and externally at Boys Town in training and program development and all those kinds of components. Then I went to Lutheran Family Services and I was there for about 5 years and oversaw all their.
Two great
Yeah, I
organizations, by
know.
the way.
I know.
Yeah.
They're awesome. Went there and oversaw all their children's services programming for about 5 years. Then I went to a for profit for a year and ran their nonprofit side.
Mm.
They had a foundation, so I ran that for about a year. And then I went back to Boys Town and worked on their foster care model and ran their foster care program for a few years before I came to the children's home as a chief program officer. And my mentor is Karen Ophir, and she was the CEO here. And she and I stayed connected because I worked with her Boys Town and Lutheran. So
Yep.
people laughed when I came here because we know each other so well. And I would like finish her sentences and get her coffee and everything. And they were like, how do you treat her like she's a queen? And I was like, because she is. She's awesome.
I love that.
Yeah. So that's how I landed at the children's home. And, throughout my whole career, the children's home has always had such a positive impact and such a strong reputation. I was really blessed to be able to come here and work and then be able to be the CEO is just a lifelong dream.
That's great. Sounds like a really focused path as well. You knew what field you wanted to be in and you progressed through it. So one thing that surprised me, you have done something I have always wanted to do and have not yet, but in preparing for our interview, I came across the fact that you co-authored a book published in 2002 called Practical Tools for Foster Parents. Can you tell
Yes.
us more about the process of writing the book and why you and the other co-authors wanted to get this information into the world?
So when I worked at Boys Town, the first time as I mentioned, and the second time, I worked a lot with foster care and foster parenting. And this book is all about, how to be a good foster parent. And it was really important to our organization to share that beyond just our walls at Boys Town. We did a lot of work, of course, internally with foster care and foster parenting. And also we trained external organizations. But it was really important to the organization as a whole to really share that knowledge and information about how to be the best foster parent that you could be. And the experience was really great because I had a whole team of people who were with me to help me. So I always have wanted to write a book, and as you mentioned, I'd love to write a book someday, but I don't know like if I could do it all by myself, right? Because I had all this whole group of people who helped me. So it was a really good experience for me to be able to do it, and it made my parents really proud, which is also super important when
That's
you're a
cool.
kid.
How many copies does your mom have on her
I think
bookshelf?
she has
I love
like
that.
3 or something like that. I'm like, Mom, that's from 2002. She doesn't care.
I wouldn't care either, Lana. I'm proud to be your friend and know that you wrote a book. So I think that's great.
My mom is so funny because, your mom, as moms, we don't have filters, right? And so she would meet
Right.
my colleagues and she would say things like, I bet she does a really good job here because she's always been super bossy. And I'm like,
yes,
Mom,
thanks,
do not
Mom.
tell people that.
Thanks,
like,
Mom.
that is not okay.
Yes. Or I remember my mom saying once, wow, is her office as messy as she kept her room when she was a kid? It's like, Mom, don't say that.
Absolutely.
Gotta love mom. So, Lana, as a leader who does difficult and sometimes heart-wrenching work, what advice do you have for other leaders who want to make a difference in the world?
I think for me, what's been important for me to remember is to focus on the people around you and to make sure that you have a strong team. And I've really learned that to be real, to be vulnerable with other folks, to try to be humble and flexible. All those things are super important. But as the leader of this organization, I'm often looked to for things like this, for interviews and, to talk about our organization. But there's so many people within our organization that do all the hard stuff.
Yeah.
And what I love is that ability to have such a strong team around me who knows how to do their job and is really excellent at it. And so that just helps elevate our entire organization. And so for me, I just have learned, especially as CEO, to get out of people's way is super important.
Great advice. Have a great team. Get out of their way, represent them well. And it sounds like you're taking good care of them too, which also is very helpful. So, Lana, I am inspired by motivational quotes, and everybody who listens to the podcast knows this is my favorite question. Could you give us a few Lana Temple-Plotz original words of wisdom?
Oh my gosh. So I have in my office, I have quotes all over my office. It's completely full. And so lots of them are not my original words. Like one of my favorites is let go or be dragged.
I love that.
Which is not an original quote. And then my other one is no one can drive us crazy unless we give them the keys. I love that one too. That's also not original, but I think my original one would be small actions lead to big impact.
Oh, yeah.
And I think for me, I try to really think about that when I'm out in the world and having conversations with people or just meeting people. Like, how do we know, what they're going through and what's happening with them, and how can we make their day a little bit brighter?
That is
and
beautiful.
Give people a break. So
I always ask that, Lana, because I feel like many people are inspired by the words of others and don't give themselves enough credit for the words that they have. So I think that small actions lead to big impact. That is a great quote, and it is now attributed to Lana Temple-Plotz. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
So for our listeners who would like to learn more about your work and how to support you and the society, how can they find out more about the Nebraska Children's Home Society? Maybe they want to become a foster parent, for example.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you can go to our website, www.nchs.org. We're on Facebook and Twitter. We're on Instagram. You can call us. You can Google us. We're available. But our website is a great resource. There's tons of information on our website and about what we're doing, kind of where we're focused. So that's a great place to start.
Fantastic. We'll have that. NCHS.org. We'll have that in the show notes for anybody who maybe didn't catch it from listening. So as we wrap up our time together today, Lana, what is the most important thing you would like our listeners to remember about the work that you're doing?
I think the most important thing for me, and I say this a lot, is that no one has a baby, looks at that baby and says, if I could screw this up, that would be awesome. Oh. Everyone who has a child, or works with children wants to do the best they can. And some of us have more support, more resources, more skills, more tools. I mean, I have two human development degrees. I have two sisters and a mom, and I have all this support, and I raised 4 kids, and it's the hardest thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
So even with all that support, I still had times where I was like, I cannot do this. And so I think for me, the most important thing I would want our listeners to remember is that our goal at the Children's Home is really to help families be better and stronger, to build connections with their kids, to build their life skills, and to help reduce those sources of stress for them so they can be the best parents they can be. And everybody needs different things. And so our job is really to help people figure out what they need and help them get that. So
Lana, that is so great. I fully believe the world needs more people like you, more organizations like Nebraska Children's Home Society. Thank you for taking time to share with us today.
Absolutely. It's fun to talk with you.
We hope you enjoyed today's Agency for Change podcast. To hear all our interviews with those who are making a positive change in our communities, or to nominate a changemaker you'd love to hear from, visit KidGlov.com at KIDGLOV.com to get in touch. As always, if you like what you've heard today, be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and share. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.